back to Salt and Burn This, a supernatural rewatch podcast. I'm Sammy.
I'm Valerie.
Thanks for joining us again. I'm so jittery because I must have made my coffee really strong today, and I had like a cup and a half.
Yeah.
So now I'm like so frazzled I can't think straight, or starting
Visibly
before I'm even
vibrating.
recording. Yeah, a little bit. And I even ate, to try and just calm it down a little bit, but it's not working yet.
Oh. This means it's going to be a super fast episode.
Fingers crossed.
Speaking of coffee, the other day, you know how like people, there's always a scene where someone takes their mug of coffee and they're just standing in the kitchen and they turn and they lean their back up against the counter and they're just like sipping their coffee
Right.
casually.
Yeah, that's a typical like coffee commercial, even like for
Yeah.
Folgers or whatever.
Well, I was doing that. I,
Mhm.
just was like, take a breath, turned around, had my coffee in hand. And just as I went to sip, the dog barked. And she didn't just bark, she did that like
The loud.
alarm
Mhm.
bark. Yeah. And like unexpected, ran to the front door. And I did the comical, not only spilled the coffee, but hit myself in the teeth with the
Oh
mug.
my god.
Spilled the coffee down my shirt. And I was like, oh, I gotta check my teeth, make sure I haven't chipped my teeth.
That would be
But
yet another trip to the dentist for you.
Right? They'd be like, Miss Wheeler, so nice to see you.
Yes.
Again. Yeah, but she couldn't have timed it better if she tried.
No. Good for
Right?
you, doggy. So you got quite the road trip ahead of you coming up.
Yes, quite a bit of hours. I am downloading podcasts to take with me on the road.
Telling you, after coming from a road trip of my own, after having not been on one for many years, it's gonna, especially since you've been in your apartment for the entire year, essentially,
Right?
right?
Yeah.
Well, I guess you've driven to your parent, like,
Yeah, a 3-hour drive is not a road trip.
yeah, no. It's gonna kind of slap you in the face a little bit, I think.
Are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet?
Yeah.
Well, I'm hoping to break it up a little bit. Like even on the first leg of my journey, I'm hoping to
Sure.
stop and see my niece because she's on the
Yeah.
way, and maybe stop and see her new apartment. And then keep going. Although I hate to say it, I'm that person who once I'm in the car, I just want to go. I just want to get there. I've put myself in jeopardy of like wetting my pants because I wait so long to pull off at a
Oh
gas
my gosh.
station. Because it's like once I'm driving, I just don't want to. Hey, hold on, Julieta. No. Sorry, I have dog treats in my pocket of my hoodie, and this is the one pocket that hasn't been chewed through, and she was just starting to work on it. So sorry about that. I need one pocket, okay? I just need one pocket.
Season 1, Episode 17, Hell House. When a case of a seemingly average haunting begins to go haywire, Sam and Dean come to find that two bumbling, wannabe paranormal investigators, Harry and Ed, are already on the case. Written by Trey Calloway and directed by Chris Long, who I don't think that we've seen.
Those names do not sound familiar to me.
All right, so this opening teaser starts with we see 4 teenagers going into a creepy little house that has we'll say a quote-unquote local legend, but it's more like a gossipy kind of legend or a telephone kind of legend where it's like,
Yeah,
oh,
my
I
cousin,
heard from someone,
yeah, my cousin told me about this place. Yeah. And, just going to point out again, the girl says, let's not go in there.
Yeah.
And the guys are like, yeah, we're going to go.
Yeah.
So once again, the girl said, let's not go into the creepy old house. And the guys say, yeah, let's go.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, did you notice the location, Chiron, our little map quest?
Richardson, Texas? Did I see that?
Yes.
Yes.
The only thing I could find about Richardson, Texas is that Jensen Ackles lived there for some time. Either he grew up there or he spent a significant amount of time living there. That's
fun.
the only thing I could find about it. And it's down near Dallas. It's like
yes,
in Dallas County.
Yeah.
but not in the city.
Yeah, it's like a suburb off of Dallas, and apparently this looks nothing like Richardson at all.
Right.
The set.
Right. And the fact that all of this takes place in the basement of an old like cabiny house, and people in Texas are like, no, we don't have basements in
Yeah,
Texas
yeah. In
because they
Oklahoma, they
flood.
don't have basements either.
Yep. But that aside, creepy house.
Yeah,
Creepy
yeah.
old cabiny type house in the woods.
So they go in. There's a bunch of symbols painted on the wall. There's just general creepiness all over the place. At the time of like this scene, it's really dark. It was for me, so it was hard to tell kind of what things were going on in there.
Yeah, it just looked like just old and cobwebby,
Yeah.
and like there had been sigils and stuff spray
Uh-huh.
painted on the walls. I think the big thing you see is like a pentagram on the floor, but again,
Right.
you only see it for a second, and
Yeah.
it's dark, and it's that's not what the kids are looking at. They're just like looking around like,
Yes.
oh, this is a creepy old house.
Yeah. So one of the kids tells a story, like the quote unquote local legend of like the man who used to live there, killed all of his daughters, and now he goes after any women that go there by stringing them up, like hanging them, specifically in the root cellar of this old house,
Right.
which you, as we already discussed, probably didn't exist, but
Yes, in the cellar that does not exist in Texas. I do like that there's one guy in this gang of four who's kind of the skeptic. He's like, "Oh yeah, who told you this? Who's they? They
yeah,
say, really?
yeah,
Fine, whatever." He's like, "Whatever, let's go."
yeah.
So he kind of ends up taking the lead. Like, just give me the flashlight. Let's go. Let's go
Uh-huh.
find something scary.
Uh-huh.
And then they get down into the basement, or the root cellar. I call it a basement because clearly I'm from the East Coast. Um, and he's like, all there is like jars of, well, he calls it skank, but it's like there's just like these weird like fruit jars with no fruit in them. It's just like different colored liquids. It just
Yeah.
looks like, clearly these people had no food
Yeah.
when they left the house. And he's like, this is stupid. There's nothing scary down here,
Yes,
and
and he
then he
does.
like does yeah the
Yeah, is it
flashlight
the
thing.
flashlight underneath the face thing? Like, ooh, I'm so scary.
Yeah.
But
And then he looks
the
at
other
everybody.
kids are like death. Like the color
Yep.
is drained from their faces.
All face, so like they've all stopped and they're just staring over his shoulder, and he's like, haha, what?
Yeah.
But what is it? It's kind of like, is there something on my face?
Yeah, yeah. They're right behind me, aren't they?
Yes, exactly. Right. It was right behind him because the camera pans around and you see these legs, that are hanging from the ceiling. It's a body. It's a body of a girl who's been hanged in the root cellar.
Yes.
And I love that this guy screams.
Yeah.
He screams and like goes to blank screen, and you still hear him screaming.
Yeah.
I was like, yes, that was great. He did a very good guy scream.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So cut to Sam and Dean driving. Sam's asleep. Dean's driving. Now we start seeing a little bit more of a lighter side of the brothers' relationship, I think. And we started to see a little bit early in earlier episodes with just little things they said,
Yeah.
But this time, like, Dean takes a plastic spoon while Sam's asleep and like puts it in his mouth, and Sam doesn't wake up. So Dean takes a picture of him and then decides to wake him up by blasting his music and singing.
Yeah.
So that Sam wakes up with a spoon in his mouth.
And he's like, what?
Yep. I love that, this whole show actually is about pranks. Like, pranks seems to be the underlying theme of
In
this episode.
yeah,
Of this,
totally.
I keep calling it the show. I mean the episode. So it's like Sam and Dean, we learned that they used to do pranks as kids. We know as watchers of the show that Jensen and Jared are the ultimate like pranksters on set. Jared more than Jensen.
Yeah, I was gonna say particularly Jared, because I wrote down like Sam doesn't seem to like these pranks. Like he gets really pissed off by them. But funny enough, Jared himself loves pranks and loves pulling them.
Right. Like legendary.
Yeah.
Like they are like, the set is known for Jared having to be yes, and like Jared having to be ordered offset because he's just disturbing people too much. But also Thurston, one of the guys in the group, the one who has the cousin Dana.
Yeah, we'll get to that though, because
they end up talking about it. I like that one of the jokes that Dean refers to having played on Sam was Nair in the shampoo. And I don't think Nair is a really big product nowadays, but Nair back in the day was a hair removal treatment for women. It was just a lotion you put on your legs, and supposedly you're just supposed to be able to wipe
it off. Yeah, I've used it actually a couple times in my days.
In your days, did you ever have the outrageous burning and scarring that happened with Nair?
Scarring, no. A little bit of burning, yes, because it was just on my legs, and maybe I used a cream one on my face for my little mustache.
Yeah.
But I do remember it burning on my face, and I used the one specifically for face.
For faces, yeah.
Yeah.
It just was never. It was one of those hair removal products that advertises as painless, but you still end up having severe pain, whether it's burning or when you rip off home waxing strips. That pain is still real. And the other thing with Nair is that the stench of that product.
Oh my god, it's awful.
So it's like, how did you not know that was in your shampoo? But I get it. That was a running prank at the time, was Nair in the shampoo, and hopefully no one noticed. But yeah, the stench and the burning would be the dead giveaway of.
So Sam has found a possible case in Richardson, Texas, but some things are kind of not adding up because the cop said that the body was gone by the time they got there. He's talking about the opening teaser that we just described. I don't know. It's just a little fishy. Then Dean kind of like pulls out of him. He's like, "Where did you find this case?" And Sam begrudgingly admits that it was from a local paranormal website called hellhoundslair.com.
Which is a real link, by the way.
Yeah, it goes to the CW website now. But
yeah, that kind of bummed me out. I was like, oh, it's a real one? Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
Maybe it was at the time, but...
Yeah, maybe we're just 15 years too late looking for it. I like that Sam says, since I knew we were going to be passing through Texas, and for the record, nobody passes through Texas. It's like, unless you're going across the north from like New Mexico to Oklahoma, and you're driving across Route 40, yeah, you can get through that in, less than a day. But if you're driving anywhere else in Texas, it's like the day you drive into Texas, you go to sleep, you wake up the next morning, you are still in Texas, driving through Texas. Yeah. There is no, like, quote, passing through.
Yeah, only Texas. If you're in the Panhandle part, then you can pass through it. But
correct. Dallas, not the Panhandle. hellhoundslair.com.
Dean does not think very highly of this website.
No. But I thought it was interesting, though, that it's like a bit of a hiatus from Dad's journal.
Yeah.
That Dean is looking up stuff on websites instead of like, Dad's journal says that there was, this haunted house here,
Yeah. Sam is he just wants a distraction from the whole dad incident that happened in the prior episode.
Yeah, and like, still saying, I think it's a bad idea that we split from Dad.
But, since there's nothing we can do about it right now, let's just find some other stuff to occupy our time. Now, did you hear Dean, when he's talking about this website? He says, oh, it sounds like streaming live out of Mom's basement. And then he says something like, those guys wouldn't know a ghost if it hit him in the persqueeter.
Yes. I loved it.
I had no idea what a persqueeter was supposed to mean.
Did you look it up?
Yes, I did. I was like, what the fuck is that? And Urban Dictionary came to the rescue.
Lady bits.
Yes, it means vagina. Apparently from a Comedy Central show that I've never heard of called That's My Bush. I was just like, what? Oh, excuse me.
Hold on. I gotta wipe my eyes. Hold on.
And not a single flinch from Sam. He just rolls with the punches on this. He doesn't like give him a look even that's just like, really? Like that's what you would say? Yeah. Yep. Persqueeter.
God. Let's go look for the kids in the interviews. Yep. And I like that they drive at like the one place where like where would kids be,
Mm-hmm.
in a town like this, and they drive up to this like I'm assuming it's like a diner, like a
Yeah,
drive-through
that's kind of what it looked like. It was a
diner.
really, really old school, like drive-in diner.
Yeah. I like the name of it was the Rodeo Drive-In, and I was like, "Oh, that's cute. Rodeo
Rodeo.
Drive-In or
Mm-hmm.
Rodeo
Yeah.
Drive-In." It was cute. It was cute. They kind of over Texased things in this episode. Like everywhere they went, there was like cow horns. You
I don't think
know?
I don't think that's over Texas at all. I think that's pretty typical Texas.
Even the motel that they end up
Yep.
going to.
Yep. I was like, I could believe that being in Texas. Absolutely. There's one, you've probably driven by it, but somewhere in Texas, I think it might be Dallas. There's like I don't know what it's called, like the biggest store in Texas or biggest store in Dallas. And I don't even know what kind of store it is, but I remember driving by it once and being like, what the fuck is that? It is the most flashy, tacky, just
Oh,
building you've ever seen. It's, turquoise. There are big light up cowboy boots and cowboy hats and kind of the Texas font, you know what I'm talking about, the old western
yep,
kind of font. It's just
yep.
too much. It's a whole building of too much. So I
Well,
believe
so
all
so
of the
this is Texas.
accoutrement, the set dressing in this episode. I'm like, yeah, I would absolutely buy that
Do you know the
living in
only thing
Texas.
that wasn't Texas, and you can fight me on this? Nobody had an accent.
Yeah, that's true. Nobody had an accent.
Nobody had. There was no twang, drawl, or
Yeah,
nothing from anybody.
yeah, yeah.
Anybody.
No, I won't fight
Okay.
you on that at all because Oklahoma is like 90% Southern drawl, which is one state up. So I would figure the farther south you go, the
Yep.
more concentrated the drawl would be.
I wonder if they just went, let's not.
Yeah,
let's
maybe.
let's not. But so they find three of the four kids at this diner, and interview them.
Mhm.
And each one of them, we're assuming that they're asked the same question,
Yeah.
and each of them has a different answer to the
Yes.
same question. Oh my
I
gosh.
really loved how they did this sequence. It was this kind of fun. They pieced it together in that they were all telling the story, but they would switch between the kids. Oh, there was this girl with blonde hair, no red hair, no
Red
dark
hair.
hair. There were Pentecostals drawn everywhere.
Pentagrams and Pentecostals. Yeah, there was blood on the walls. The walls were black, She was
Mhm.
sitting there. She was still kicking.
Yeah.
She
Yeah.
was hot. And then it was like all conversation stopped.
Yeah.
It's like, well, for a dead girl, she was kind of hot.
Which I found funny is like that comment even made Dean squirmy.
Cringe.
Yeah.
Too far, man.
Yep.
Too far. So then they end up saying, where did you guys hear all like what made you go to this house in the first place? And they all went, oh, Thurston. He told us about it. So they're like, we need to go find Thurston.
It's Craig.
Craig.
Is his name? I don't.
Okay. Why did
I
I
I
didn't
think
write
they
that down?
said Craig. I don't. I mean,
Oh.
they ask him if he's Craig Thurston later on, but
Oh,
yeah.
right. Yeah. So they go to a record store, which I thought was kind of cool that this kid worked in a record store.
Yeah.
And we get to see their personas in this episode are
Mhm.
still themselves, but this time they say that they're reporters for the Dallas Morning News.
Yeah.
And I think that's the only persona that they have in this episode.
Yes.
So they find this Craig Thurston and they ask him about what brought you to that house.
Mhm.
Where did these stories come from? And so he retells the story of this guy Mordecai, who
Mhm.
in the 30s during the Depression saw his family starting to starve, his family of girls,
Mhm.
and decides to kill them quick instead of having them suffer and starve to death.
Yeah.
And then once he's done hanging his children, he ends up hanging himself.
Mhm.
Um, and he says, I swear what I saw was real, in that house. And it was not a prank. That girl was dead. I mean,
Yeah.
a girl's dead. That's not a prank. This what
Yeah. Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
real.
Yeah.
And I would never go back to that house again after what
Mhm.
I saw. Cut to the house.
Mhm.
Cut back to that creepy old cabin house, which I have to say, kudos to the location scouts. That
Yeah.
house was amazing.
Loved that house.
Yeah. That just the outside, I mean, yeah, it was trees were growing into the house. There was vines everywhere.
Mhm.
It looked wet and old and moldy, like mossy, moldy, like, if you've spent any time in the woods,
Yeah.
wet logs, like dead wet logs
Mhm.
just
They have a smell
stink,
about them.
yeah. Yeah, and it's like I could smell that.
Very spooky house. And they
Yes.
try first their usual EMF uh,
Mm.
reader, but it's going a little wacky because of some interference that might still be active in the house. I'm guessing it was the telephone wires
That
or
yeah, the power, the
any.
transformer box up on the
Yeah,
on the telephone pole is,
yeah.
I guess, notorious for EMF leakage, I guess.
Yeah, I guess so too. But anyway, they deem it useless, and then they go into the house to search for themselves. So then they see all of these symbols written on the walls. But Sam notes it's like these don't really make sense because some of these, yeah, maybe he would write them, in the based on the 1930s story. But some of these are after his time, so he wouldn't even know
Yeah, yeah, if they weren't
what that's
made until
supposed
the
to be.
60s, like what Sam
Mhm.
says, then Mordecai didn't do this.
Yeah. And then there's
And
also
it's
this random one that's on the
yeah,
wall that's kind of like an upside down question mark with some
yeah,
lines
or a
around it.
J or something.
Mhm.
Yeah. And I mean, I hate to say this, but also, Sam points out, he says, well, this over here is a sigil for sulfur. And that's the one he says is the one that was
Mhm.
from the 60s.
Mhm.
He's right about the definition of the sigil for sulfur, but that particular symbol isn't the sulfur sigil. It's
Hmm.
actually a Jerusalem cross.
Oh,
That just because there were so many symbols, I had to look them up.
right. What does
I had to be that
the
person.
sulfur symbol actually look like?
Oh, the sulfur signal, it actually is, it looks like two upside down T's with
Uh-huh.
an infinity symbol at the bottom.
Oh. This?
Yes, that's exactly it. That's exactly it. The Leviathan cross or
Ooh.
Satan's cross. So yeah, that would have been the actual sulfur sigil. So while I was all super impressed with, Sam just having the knowledge of symbols
Mhm.
in his brain, that's, without having to refer to, a journal or anything.
Yeah.
Dean is like kind of a macho dick and he's like, this is why you don't get laid.
Yeah.
That's what, nerds don't get
Yeah.
girls. I was like, ah, Dean,
I know.
Dean. But they also realized that they're like one of the sigils, that J one or the upside down question mark one,
Mhm.
is like fresh paint. They're like, oh,
Yes.
this is new.
Yes. Yes. And it's also
Um,
what like Dean is like I have seen this before, but I have no idea what it is. Like
right.
he has a recollection of it, but he cannot place where it is. And
Yep.
yes, that it's fresh paint.
Yep. But they think that it's just kids pranking and
Mhm.
tagging the
Mhm.
you know the the property, just trying to scare each other, I
Yeah.
guess. Um, but then they hear a noise in
Mhm.
the next room, and they go into hunter mode,
Mhm.
and like burst into the kitchen and are like caught in the like a floodlight.
Yeah. I said they're attacked by flashlights.
Yeah. And it's like two guys, they're two humans, two young guys who have
Yeah.
like video cameras and lights, and and one of the
Special
guys yells,
goggles. There's like all sorts
yeah,
of equipment and things going on.
one of them yells cut,
Mm.
which is funny because he's the one holding the camera, which I thought was kind of funny. But so it turns out that it's these two like paranormal hunter
Doofuses.
guys.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, and it's like they're trying to be all slick, which I love.
Uh-huh.
The guy like whips out his business cards and he was like flap,
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
We are professional paranormal hunters or paranormal investigators. That's what
Yeah.
they are. And I love that they're like trying to be like as slick as like Dean and Sam actually are in real
Yeah.
life,
Yeah.
without knowing Dean and Sam. But they introduce themselves as, are you ready for this, Sammy?
Yes.
All right. Ed Zedmore and Harry Spangler. Those names mean anything to you?
They're from Ghostbusters.
Yes, they
I do know that much.
are. Okay.
I mean I looked it up, but
Oh.
because I was like they kind of point out the last names, when Dean was reading them off the card. So I was like, okay,
Yeah.
this must be from some movie.
Yes.
Um,
Dean recognizes the names.
Well, yeah, most normal people that aren't me would automatically be like, oh, okay.
Spangler, Zedmore, yes. All right, so Spangler is Egon Spangler, and Ed Zedmore is Winston Zedmore.
Okay.
Both were Ghostbusters on Ghostbusters. We can dive deeper, but we won't.
Who played them respectively in the movie?
Winston Zedmore was Ernie Hudson. Winston Zedmore was the one black Ghostbuster, if
Okay.
you need that pointed out to you. And Egon was played by Harold Ramis, and Harold Ramis also directed, and he's a million movies under his belt.
Yeah. So this is where our boys, they play dumb a little bit with these other guys. You know, they're like, EMF.
EMF.
What is that?
Which was us from the first episode.
Yes.
Electromagnetic fields totally lets them, pump themselves up. Yes. Totally lets the Ed and Harry be all macho and like, know it all.
Wait, you've really seen a ghost?
We saw a vase travel and fall off a table all by itself. We didn't actually see it.
We heard it, but
we heard it. But it was real. It was real. And these two guys actually go on to be like characters in a recurring characters on the show, and they also had their own spin-off show.
Yeah, they had like a little web series, right?
Yeah, and I didn't watch it. I'm now tempted to go back and just watch it to have it in my pocket. But yeah, it was called Ghost Facers, which
yes.
Everyone who sees them is like Ghost Facers.
Yeah, Ghost Facers. They even have a little theme song that goes like that. But yeah, so you will see them again, and that can either be good or bad if you love them or hate them, because I think they're kind of a polarizing recurring character in the universe.
Right.
I love them. I think that they're hilarious.
Yeah. Did you recognize the actors themselves from anything?
I didn't. I know them as the Ghost Facers guys.
The only guy that I recognized was the guy who played Ed Zedmore. His name's A.J. Buckley, and he was on CSI New York for like 5 to 7 seasons or something. He played one of the lab techs, and I was like, I know this face. That's why I know that face. But the other guy, Travis Wester, I was unfamiliar with completely. Yeah. So, and he did a great job.
Yes, they have a great dynamic between the two of them as well. So there's nothing to see in this house. So the boys leave. They leave the. They're not called the Ghost Facers yet. Right now, I'm gonna call them the Hellhounders because that's the name of their website.
Sure.
They learn that they are the ones who wrote this website. By the way.
Yes.
So like, oh, you're the guys who
run the Hellhounds lair. Okay, yeah. They realize that these aren't. Dean and Sam are like, they're not real paranormal guys. They're not hunters. They're just two guys from their mom's basement who run a website. So there's like, all right.
So off they go to the library, or at least we assume, because Sam walks out of the library, finds out that there was a Murdoch that lived in that house, but his name was Martin. He had 2 sons, not 6 daughters, and he was not a murderer. He was just some guy like living in that house. And there's also no evidence of this dead woman that was there when the kids found her. She
no, the body was missing. There was no evidence of a crime.
No, there was no missing persons report filled out. Like it's like she never existed.
Yes, because Dean went to the police station. Sam goes to the library. Dean goes to the police station. Yeah, no missing person matching this dead girl. And they're like, let's just go. Let's just go grab a beer. Let the locals, deal with that. And Dean gets in the car, but Sam hesitates. It looks like he's about to say something like...
Yeah, he's got this like... face.
And so Dean starts up the car, and like every knob is turned open. It's the radio, the windshield wipers, the lights, the heat, everything is on, and it just blasts him. And Sam is like, oh, I gotcha. And Dean's like, weak. That was your prank? Yeah. Weak. So back at the haunted house.
Yes.
There's a new set of kids. And I say kids, teenagers.
Yeah.
Who have apparently played Truth or Dare, and this girl she lost and had to do the dare.
Yeah, she had a choice of one of 2 dares, and one was to go into the house and grab like a jar of something from the cellar, or make out with the guy that was standing there. And she's like, I'm going to take the homicidal ghost. Thank you. Even though she's terrified. She's like, do I really have to do this? All right. If I don't have to make out with you, then I'll do this.
All right. Can't really blame her.
No.
Can't really blame her. So she is kind of scared. She goes into the house. She's got a flashlight and she goes into the creepy house. And she sucks it up. She opens the basement door. She goes down into the cellar. And she passes by this mirror and doesn't see anything. But we see something in the mirror after her.
Yeah.
Like after she walks out of frame, we see something for a hot second. And I saw a guy in like overalls with rope.
I couldn't really tell what it was. Like, I knew something had happened in the mirror, but maybe I looked away for a little bit too long, but I was just like, I know something just happened, but I couldn't tell what had happened.
It was just fast enough that she's that as an audience member, you're like, did I just was that you know? And then in my mind started filling in the blanks. It was like, that was a guy, he had rope. You know. But yeah, so that moment, that it wasn't a jump out moment, but it genuinely scared me. It was that same, you know, the first time you see Bloody Mary in the mirror, I was like, oh, you know, oh, there's something there that doesn't belong.
Yes. So she's in the cellar. She grabs one of the jars, and then she hears a big noise. The second noise, because earlier she heard one upstairs, was a huge like chopping sound or something, and all she did was like, hello? Yeah. Like, I would have bolted out of there at that point. But she hears another one, just like a big stomp or something. She drops the jar, and then she goes deeper into the cellar. You know, she's like, okay, what do I do? Like, instead of going back up the stairs, you know, into the main part of the house, like, as she was trying to run away from the sound.
I thought she heard the cellar door close. I thought that's what that big noise was the cellar door closing and it locking.
Oh, I didn't hear anything like locking. Not to say that it wasn't, but because I wasn't listening in headphones. I was just listening on TV.
Okay. I think that's what it was.
Okay, fair enough. Then that makes sense why she would go deeper in the cellar, because I was just like, what are you doing? Get out of there. So I guess she was looking for another way out. And then all of a sudden, this big guy appears, whom one can assume is Mordecai, the ghost. I don't know if we mentioned the name of the ghost or not, but it's supposed to be Mordecai.
Mordecai. I don't think we did.
No.
I think because the name Mordecai is used a million times in this episode that we just all think we know who the ghost
I stopped even writing it after a while. I was just like, just use the letter M.
It's too hard to write.
It is.
But yeah, so this spirit, this thing appears. A guy comes out of nowhere. It looks like it's the same thing that was in the mirror, and he has a rope, and he slams her around, steps on her glasses. She screams, and he ends up throwing a noose around her neck and stringing her up to the rafters, and we see her strangle and die.
Yeah.
And it's horrific. The actor, just as a side note, same guy who played the Rawhead in Faith.
Yeah, I think he's in 4 episodes altogether of Supernatural.
The go-to monster guy.
Yeah.
Later, outside of this house, now we see the cops are there. They're wheeling this girl's body out of the cabin. Sam and Dean are like, you know, what happened? They're asking the cops, and the cops say, you know, she hanged herself. You know, that's such a bummer. She had a full ride to the, you know, state university, and so they think it was just a suicide. Dean is like, oh wait, no, I just got ahead of myself. Hold on. Oh no, I was right.
No, you're right. You're right.
Sam says, you know, so what do you think? And Dean says, I think we made a mistake.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
This is something.
Yeah, they're rethinking that this is a dead end.
Yeah. I have to say there's a continuity flub here. Just a small one, but like when you first see the outside of the cabin and they're wheeling the body out on the gurney, it kind of clunks down the steps and is wheeled towards the coroner's van. Well, as they're walking away from the scene, the body is once again clunked down the steps and wheeled towards. So it's just one of those, you know, they didn't reset the props. Yeah. It wasn't a big deal. It was actually very subtle, but it was just one that was like, oh, caught that. So they decide to go back again at night. I guess they're waiting for the cops to clear out, you know.
Yeah, but unfortunately they haven't cleared out. They're keeping like an intense eye on this house because they don't want any more teenagers like breaking
Yeah.
in. And
there's like crime scene tape around the house
yeah.
now.
Also, as the boys are hiding in the bushes, they hear loud footsteps like from behind them. Not subtle at all, but they see the two hellhound guys just whispering. They're not even whispering. They're just like talking loudly at each other, and they're also trying to sneak into the house apparently. And then you see Sam and Dean being like, "Oh God, really?" So Dean comes up with this idea. He shouts out like, "Who are you gonna call?" Which then
Ghostbusters.
Yeah, which then makes the cops like look in that direction, and they see the two hellhounds guys and like, "Hey!"
They're like, what? No! So the cops go chasing Ed and Harry so that Dean and Sam can sneak back into the house.
Yeah.
Oh. And so now they have a moment in the house and they're looking at the sigils again.
Mm-hmm.
And Dean is like, I have seen this before, and it's that upside down question mark J thing.
Yeah.
And I said to myself, so have I. I've totally seen this symbol before. And when it hit me, I was like, oh my gosh, it's from that movie I told you about, The Prince of Darkness. Remember? About that the devil lives on the other side of mirrors?
Yeah, the mirror. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That symbol was like the symbol of the coming of Satan. Like when you started to see this symbol start showing up in the movie, you're like, oh, he's getting closer. So I'm like, oh my God, this is a symbol of Satan.
Wow.
And this is, I was like, why aren't they talking about this movie, The Prince of Darkness, this terrible B movie? But why isn't it being mentioned if this is the same symbol from that? So I was like, I've seen it. I know where it's from. But Dean at this point still can't put his finger on it.
No.
And so they, after they look at the symbols, they make their way back down to the root cellar.
Mm-hmm.
And they're looking around down there. And this kind of, I had a question about this. Dean picks up a jar off the shelf, the shelf of jars that people are supposedly taking jars as part of the dare. But it looks like it's the same jar that the girl who just was killed had picked up and dropped. And I'm like, is the ghost like resetting the scene every time something happens down there? And that was just my question. I was like, "Ooh, that's weird," because that was the exact jar that he picks up and he turns to Sam and says, "I dare you, I dare you to take a swig of this." Yeah. It's the exact same jar that she had just in the scene before picked up as part of her dare, and then dropped when the cellar door slammed.
Yeah, I
shut.
know that her the liquid of the jar that she picked up was like a pink or a red.
Yeah, to me it looked like it was the same jar. It may have been a different jar.
Yeah.
But I also was like, ooh, the ghost has reset the scene for this. People on they say on websites are like, that was a mistake. It was the same jar that was smashed. I'm like, I think it was purposely done that the ghost is just resetting things each time. So that's my answer to that. But yeah, Dean's like, dare you to take a swig. Sam's like, why would I ever do that? Double dare you.
Yeah.
I like that. You can totally see Dean as a kid in a lot of these moments.
Yeah.
He's not just being a jerk, he's being a kid.
He's 100% the older brother.
Yes. But then they hear like this creaking in a cabinet, like down there in the basement. And so guns out, run out to, sneak up onto the cabinet, and Sam opens the cabinet doors and out fly like some rats. Not fly, but out outburst some rats. That's what I meant to say. Burst some rats.
Dean would have preferred it to be a ghost.
Yes, I don't blame him.
And lucky him, the ghost is right behind him.
Right. Luckily, the spirit arrives to make that wish come true. And they shoot it. They shoot it with their rock salt. It's like blam, 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 but it doesn't affect the spirit.
Nothing.
It does end up kind of like smoking away, but it didn't.
It was shot at several times before it smoked away.
Yeah, and it didn't smoke away the way we know rock salt does to ghosts.
Yes.
And they're like, oh.
Yeah. Oh, shit. So then they try to get out because they were like, I don't know how to deal with this, so let's go.
Yep.
And this ghost is he's making a mess. Like the boys are really struggling with trying to get away. And also just to note that this ghost has an axe. which does seem to cause some damage. Like, it's not just a ghost axe; it's a real axe that
Yeah,
can
it's
like
like it.
slam into cut things.
Yeah, and it can hold the axe handle against like Sam's throat,
Uh-huh.
and
Mhm.
pin him against the walls and stuff. It's
Mhm.
more corporeal than like any spirit has been so
Yeah.
far.
Yeah.
Um, but while this is happening outside, Ed and Harry have like managed to outrun the cops.
Yeah.
I hate to say something about the cops in this town, but
No kidding.
but Ed, what is it? Ed is like, I'm not going back in there. I'm not going back in there. And Harry's like, come on. Would John Edwards say no?
Yeah.
Let's go. I don't know if you ever watched John Edwards' show.
I
I
know
think it
that
was
he
called
was the guy that,
Crossing Over.
yeah, he could talk to the dead, right? And he would
Yes.
have people come on, and he would basically
Talk to
be
their dead relatives.
what was Whoopi
A medium?
Goldberg's? Yes, but yeah, a medium. I was gonna say Obadiah or whatever her name was in Ghost.
Oh.
Where she
1,
was
2,
the
3.
medium.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, a
Something,
medium.
yeah, something unique. But a medium.
Okay.
I don't know if he actually went into haunted houses and like hunted ghosts, John Edwards.
No, he just no. He just did the whole do you want to speak to your
Speaking
loved
to
one
dead.
type of
Yeah.
thing. Crossing over, he talked to the dead
Yes.
basically.
Yes.
I just thought it was a cute reference.
It
What
was.
would
Yeah.
John Edwards say
They
no?
have they have a lot of cute references, which I like.
Yeah. I just also love that they are decked out in like the most ghostbustery of equipment.
Oh yeah.
I mean everything that Sam and Dean don't have, these
Mhm.
guys have.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know.
As they're about to go in, the boys come bursting out, like running from this ghost, and they're like shoving Ed and Harry away, like, get that thing out of my face, the camera. But they are taping, and they tape Mordecai, the ghost, like coming after them, like with the axe, and then he just kind of, swoosh, smokes away, and
Yep.
Ed and Harry are like, ah. And
Sweet
Harry,
Lord of the Rings.
yes, I love that.
And they do run away, but into the cops.
Yes,
They turn to run away and they run smack into the cops again.
they are not good at this.
No.
So they're back at the hotel in research mode. Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, the cattle horns over the headboards were huge and amazing. Over both of their beds, giant cattle horns. I don't know what they're called. Steer horns or
I
something.
don't know, I think they're just called longhorns.
Oh, or longhorns. See, I didn't even know that. They were awesome. I loved it. I was like, they must have had the best time putting these rooms together.
Yeah, there's
The
also
set decorators.
a stuffed armadillo on the table somewhere.
Taxidermied armadillo.
Yeah.
You sure it wasn't too Texas?
I'm pretty sure. That doesn't surprise me because in Oklahoma, which I didn't even think that armadillos lived in Oklahoma, but they get hit by cars all the time. So you'd see them on the side of the road as much as you would like maybe a possum like somewhere else,
Yeah.
or deer,
Yeah. I heard my mom said
guys.
that they jump like right before you hit them, so you're not just like running over them with your car. You hit them with your bumper because they
Yeah, I think they like jump when it's like a defense mechanism where they jump, and then I think they
turn into a ball.
yeah. So it's really sad for little guys because they're so cute. So they're getting really frustrated because this ghost is changing his MO. Before he was like stringing people up, so he, would have had a rope or something, but this time he's got an axe.
Yeah.
And also Sam noted that he had slit wrists, which I didn't notice when I was looking
when he
over
said
it,
that, I went back and I
Mhm.
watched it again, and I was like, that's not fair. I mean, that was something that there was you could see it in one frame of one
Uh-huh.
shot in that whole sequence, and it literally was like this and done. I was like,
Mhm.
that's not fair.
Well,
If you're gonna
maybe
make
Sam was looking at his wrist when he was being choked out by the.
yeah, but camera guys, the intention is if the audience was meant to see it.
Yeah.
The magazine, the Men's Health magazine that Jared Padalecki was in, there's more focus on that than there was on, the slit wrists of the ghost, and that was a plot point of,
Yeah.
So I'm
I
gonna say,
guess just Sam just mentioning it, because they both did notice it. Sam says, "Oh, did you notice the slit wrist?" And Dean said, "Yeah, that's weird."
yeah,
Maybe that was their way of, I don't know, but
I think some of it ended up on the cutting room floor is what I'm
maybe,
saying.
probably.
In the meantime, though, Dean is still sketching that symbol, and he's
Mhm.
like, I can't
Yeah.
put my finger on
Yes,
this.
it's not an earworm, obviously, because an earworm is a song that gets stuck in your head. But this is
It's
like
an
a
obsession
symbol
now.
that's stuck in his head, and he can't quite nail it.
He's obsessed with this symbol.
Yeah, so Sam checks the Hellhound site again just to say, like, but I'm pretty sure the story said that, it was blah, blah, blah. But then he notices that it's changed on the website. That now the website says he's killed his victims with an axe and then offed himself by slitting his wrists.
Right. And it's not just girls. It's
everybody.
Guys too, which made sense because, it went after Dean and Sam, who are not girls.
Yes.
So
Dean would like to think that Sam is chick-like.
So when Sam notes that the website has changed, the story has changed, Dean kind of gets an aha moment. Yeah. He's like, something clicked. I think I know what's happening now. And so they take off to go, it turns out, back to the record store. And they need to talk to Craig Thurston. And just a little bit of trivia that Dean picks up when they walk into the record store. The first thing Dean does is he goes to a rack of records and he pulls out an album. It's a Blue Oyster Cult album. And it happens to have the Don't Fear the Reaper and Burning for You on it. And he's because now he's figured out where he's seen that symbol before, and that upside down J symbol is the symbol for Blue Oyster Cult, which I didn't know until he said that. So this whole time that I was like, oh my gosh, it's totally from Prince of Darkness. Prince of Darkness used that exact same symbol. So I was scared to death by the Blue Oyster Cult.
No, I mean, I know who Blue Oyster Cult is, but I didn't know that this was their symbol either.
Yeah, that was the band's symbol that the guy who made it, it was just a form of Jupiter, I think, wasn't it? Or Saturn?
I don't think it means anything.
No, it was he based it on the astrological sign of Saturn.
I see.
Yeah. But it was his rendition of Saturn.
Right. Okay. All right.
So I just thought that was funny that I was like, oh my God, it's Satan. No, it's Blue Oyster Cult. It's Don't Fear the Reaper, Val.
Right. Which, if you have the DVD, which I haven't watched this one yet, but I'm going to because I want to hear it with the actual soundtrack. But they play a lot of Blue Oyster Cult in this episode. Like in the very beginning, the one where he cranks it up to prank Sam.
Yeah.
It's a Blue Oyster Cult song. It is, hold on. They play Burnin' For You later on. But I think it's Fire of Unknown Origin, which I don't know that one off the top of my head. I'm sure I would recognize it if I heard it. But anyway, there's a lot of Blue Oyster Cult in this episode, which that would kind of be a little Easter egg, I guess.
Easter egg?
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. So they confront Thurston of like, what'd you do? What'd you do? You painted these symbols in the house, to scare people. What's going on? And so Thurston confesses that, he and his cousin Dana were just pranking kids. There's the prank that we were talking about earlier.
Yes.
That they just, she had books from school and they spray painted stuff on the walls. They painted the pentagram on the floor. They nailed chicken feet around. They just wanted to make it look like the house was haunted.
Yeah.
And then they just started telling kids about it. And then Ed and Harry posted it on their website, and then people started going to the house.
Yeah. But he also found the story of the actual Martin guy who lived there, and he just made up the story about Mordecai. And they also state the first body that they see is actually Dana. Because you could see her like making herself up to look dead, and he puts a rope around her like, ha ha, I'm hanging you. So it was Dana there pranking everybody.
Right. So she was not dead. She was not a dead girl in the first.
No.
In the first scene, she was in on it and she was alive, which is why her body disappeared before the cops got there. So, but Thurston again is like, this was just a prank, and now someone has actually died, and this is never what we thought, would happen. Genuinely remorseful, but
he is. Yeah, he's really torn up about it. And you know what? I mean, I do feel bad for him because that was a good prank when he pulled.
Yeah,
that was like an excellent prank.
Especially when he played it like he was in on it.
Yeah,
like with the kids who went to the house. So he had to act the part as well.
I know, and he acted the part also earlier, when Sam and Dean talked to him, being like, yeah, that girl was dead. I never want to go in that house again. Still
Yeah.
very straight faced. He played this very well. So I also would have been like mortified, traumatized if
Someone
somebody did actually die in that kind of way. But the boys do say, if this isn't real, then where the hell did Mordecai come from? Like, he is real because we
saw him. Yeah, exactly.
So they go back to the hotel. Dean comes in the door and he pulls out a packet of itching powder. Starts throwing it in Sam's clothes. I'm guessing his underwear specifically.
Yeah, because Sam's in the shower.
Yeah.
And thankfully, Sam comes out of the shower wrapped in nothing but a towel. So apparently that was done because of the fans pressuring the networks to see more of the
boys instead of the girls.
Boys. Yes, exactly. More of the boys, please.
If you're going to objectify the women in the show, then you should be objectifying the men in the show. Yes. I agree. Equal representation.
Yes, and they did a very good job of it here because Jared Padalecki in a towel while wet is thank you. I just want to say thank you.
So while he's half naked, he does say like, "Oh, this might be a tulpa." So they get dressed and they go to a diner or something to research some more. Sam is like very visually irritated by obviously the itch. We know there is itching powder in his undies, but he does not understand what's going on. You can just see him like trying to scratch his balls without not really scratching his balls.
You can see Dean kind of watching him, but trying not to like acknowledge. It's like, dude, are you okay? Yeah, I'm fine. And then he's like,
yeah. So he mentions there was a time when like 20 monks or so, Tibetan monks, visualized a golem, and they concentrated and like meditated on it so hard that it then appeared as something actually real. So they basically made something imaginary.
Made something real out of nothing. Yeah, exactly. Dean's, as Sam says, that was just 20 monks. Imagine the entire internet.
Yeah.
Thinking about this. And Dean had a good point. He's like, well, everyone believes in Santa Claus.
Mm-hmm.
Why isn't Santa actually walking around? He didn't say it like that, but he's like, how come I don't get any, any
Christmas
Santa
presents?
Sam's like, because you're a terrible person. But also, the symbol, that Tibetan symbol, was not part of the Santa Claus lore.
Right. So one of the symbols that they painted on the wall was an actual Tibetan symbol. And he described it as like a meditative magnifying glass. So if someone were to like look on it and meditate on it, it's supposed to kind of exponentially increase the
magnify your thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So if 10,000 web surfers are all staring at this one symbol while reading the story about Mordecai, then it would
magnify and Sam's still squirming.
Yeah.
Even though he's explaining all this really detailed, information, he's still just like, oh,
yeah. And also, now that the Hellhound guys posted that video that they recorded of Mordecai, like the traffic is now just going up like crazy. Yeah. So they're like, oh fuck, man, this is not gonna be good.
Yeah. How do we get rid of a thought form? You know, how do we kill an idea?
Yeah.
And Sam's like, I think I'm allergic to like our soap. And you can hear Dean laughing at him.
Oh, he's cracking up. That's when he can't hold it anymore.
Ha ha ha. He's like, you did this. And an outtake of this moment, because they'll have actors just say a line differently a little bit each time to see if it builds the scene better. And Jared Padalecki says, instead of, I think I'm allergic to our soap, he says, I think that midget stripper gave me herpes. And you see Jensen like start to walk away, and then he turns back and he just stares at Jared. He's like, oh yeah, he couldn't hold it. He couldn't hold it in. So next scene, Ed and Harry are in their techno trailer.
Yeah.
And it's cute little like Airstream.
Loved it.
And once again, Ed is like, I'm not going back. I'm not going back there. And Harry's like, this video is like our ticket. This video that we have of Mordecai is like our ticket to money, fame, sex with girls.
Yeah.
Harry's like,
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, that's nice. That's not really changing my mind about
Yes.
this.
I also love their motivational mantra, which is WWBD. What would Buffy do?
Yes. And so it's like, nut up. That's what she would do. She would do it.
Right. But even Harry's
But
just like, but she's stronger than me, Ed.
and just then,
Mm-hmm.
Sam and Dean show up
Yeah.
and try to convince them to take down the website. But the boys, Ed and Harry, are like, nope, this is going to be our bread and butter.
Yep. Did you notice? I tried to pause and look at them, but the little time slider was blocking some of them. But they have a bunch of stickers on the front of their door, of the trailer door. And I saw the one that I mean, it's something, right? It says like, "Go into the light."
That was
Carol
there was a
Ann.
poltergeist sticker. Don't go into the light, Carol Ann. I couldn't read them, but the fans sites say that there were. But
Okay.
the one visible one that kept coming up was the
Was
don't
that
go into
one?
the light, Carol Ann.
Yeah. The boys are trying to get them to shut down their website. The Ed and Harry are like, absolutely not, no way. You know, don't be mad at us for finding out all this info. And then Sam was just like,
okay, Plan B.
Well, yeah, I think that they had this plan all along because
No, I know, but they're like, okay, we'll go in with Plan A and ask them to turn the site off, and then Plan B is let's give them this story.
I don't think that they wanted them to shut the website down.
Huh? Okay.
Because where did they go? Oh, after they left the diner when Dean is laughing at Sam because
the itching powder,
itchy balls. Dean says like we got to go find a copy shop. So they printed out that thing that they end up giving him, because it's fake.
Okay. All right, I'm with you. I got it.
So okay,
yep.
So what we're talking about is like Sam and Dean are,
they're playing dumb.
Yes, they're playing dumb. They're
leave
fake.
Them on.
Yes, fake convincing them to shut down the website. And then they give a little teaser information. They're like, man, they probably won't even believe the thing that you found out about Mordecai or something along those lines. Like a little bit of teaser information that then makes Ed and Harry literally chase after them. But like, hold on, wait. What thing? What thing about Mordecai? Like, no, man, because you said you were going to shut the site down. If you promise to shut the site down, we will tell you our information. And Ed and Harry, of course, are like, yep, we promise. The fingers crossed behind their back kind of
Right.
So then they say, this whole story that you have about how he died, you're actually wrong. We found this at the library. And they found a death certificate of Mordecai, that he was actually killed by a self-inflicted gunshot.
It was a 45, right?
A 45, yes. And so now, as a ghost, as a spirit, he's horribly afraid of 45s. And it's said that if you shoot him with a special kind of bullet, then you can kill him.
Yep.
And they're like, oh, okay, cool. Well, we're gonna go shut the site down now. take the fake death certificate, and then
run back to their trailer. Sam and Dean, having planted the bug of a different Mordecai story, they've gone to another diner.
Yeah.
That has this ridiculous thing on the wall. Instead of like a singing bass,
yeah,
it's got this like laughing fisherman. You like pull a string and it goes ha 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 ha, and Dee's just sitting there like pulling the string and it's laughing, and he's pulling the string and it's laughing, and it's driving Sam insane. He's like, pull that string one more time, I'll kill you.
Yes,
I will kill you.
But they do post it. They post the story as planned. It's up. Yep. It's going, and they say probably by nightfall enough people will have seen it in order for it to manifest into, his new MO. So then we can go kill him with the gun.
Yes.
Cheers. And as Sam and Dean both grab their beer bottles with their hands and Cheers. Clink. Dean takes a swig and then realizes he cannot let go of the beer bottle because Sam has retaliated by supergluing the beer bottle.
That's right. And Dean's like, you didn't. And Sam is gleefully holding up a tube of super glue. He's like, I did.
And then he pulls the string on the laughing guy and is just so full of joy. That was a good prank
Definitely, definitely good prank. So later that night, back in the woods, the cops are still there, patrolling the property, but they hear something and they're like, "What is that?" And they hear the,
Yeah,
you
it's
know, that.
obviously that because we heard it 16,000 times
Yeah,
in the
it's
scene
Dean and
before.
Sam with that stupid fisherman guy,
Yes.
which somehow is like laughing by itself, and that kind of creeped me out a little bit.
Yeah,
But
yeah, that too. I was just like, who's pulling the chain to make it laugh?
right, because it kept going like one after
Yeah.
another, one after another as the cops got closer. But it's like, all right, maybe they jury rigged
Rig
it
something,
somehow.
yeah.
Cops are out of the way. Sam and Dean go back into the house, and they're definitely in like hunter mode with the guns and the flashlights. And Ed and Harry show up and almost get themselves killed.
Yes. Did you did you take note of the banter that Sam and Dean do right before they run into Ed and Harry? It's really gross boy humor, but
Oh, maybe I
Dean says, they're
yeah.
holding their guns and they're, doing this little scanning the room thing, and he says, "I barely have any skin left on my palm." And Sam says, "I'm not touching that line with a 10-foot pole."
No skin left on my palm, dude.
I laughed very hard.
Did you notice though that Harry and Ed always had little like pot things to say?
They do, yeah.
It was just like at the end of their first time we seen them. I think it was Ed is like, "I'm sorry, I could that pot gave me the giggles." Then later on they're like, "I just really have the munchies. I don't."
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh.
So
Yeah.
yes,
So
they run into these guys yet again.
yeah, and almost get themselves shot in the process.
Yeah.
But before they can like get chastised, Mordecai shows up.
Yeah, he comes through a door that all four of them are like staring down. Dean and Sam are at the ready, guns pointed at it, like finally here we go, and the other two guys, Ed and Harry, are scared out of their minds.
Right.
Mordecai comes through, Dean and Sam start shooting at it, but he's not stopping.
Yeah. Yeah, and he still has an axe in his hands.
Yeah.
Yep. And so it turns out that the website crashed before the change could be made.
Right.
Or the servers went down or something.
Yeah. Probably they crashed before enough people really like saw it or could make it manifest.
Right.
So they're like, so no one saw it? So these guns don't work? Great.
Yeah, great. Now what do we do? But before they can really answer, I mean, like Dean and Sam go off to go try to figure things out. The boys, Harry and Ed, are like, let's relook at that footage again. Let's see if we got it. And while Harry has the camera, Mordecai reappears and like almost kills him, like takes a swing at him, manages to hit the camera instead, thankfully. Yeah, there's a huge mistake in this scene.
Yeah.
Huge. As they're getting ready to run, as Sam and Dean have left the room, and we're looking at Harry and Ed, almost a quarter of the screen is filled with the body of a crew guy. You could totally see this crew guy step full into frame. Full into frame. I couldn't tell you if he was a sound guy or, boom operator or whatever, but it was just like full shoulder into frame. And there was no hiding it. And if you look at any of the fan sites, that's like the one big thing. It's like yes, but I noticed it. I was like, who is that?
Yeah.
And then, oh, that's too bad.
I didn't notice it.
But it happens really fast, but it is there. So Ed and Harry run, but they get trapped in a hallway. By
Mordecai blocks the exit and then also corners them in a little area. And I'm guessing this is an Exorcist reference, where Ed is screaming, "The power of Christ compels you.
The power of Christ compels you." Yes, that's what one of the priests is screaming. Yes, in The Exorcist.
Yes.
That's one of his final attempts to exorcise that particular demon is the power of Christ compels you. Yay, Sammy.
Hey! Sam saves them. He comes to the rescue and like distracts Mordecai and he's like, "Hey, bastard, come over here," because Sam knows he definitely has a better chance of beating off this ghost than
Phrasing.
That was what I was gonna say about that line earlier. Was just like phrasing,
phrasing,
as Archer would say.
He has a better chance
of beating
of
up the
eating the
ghost.
ghost,
Yeah.
yes, than the boys do, than
Mhm.
Ed and Harry do. So Ed and Harry are like, "See ya."
Mm,
They're
yep.
like, "Okay, we'll leave."
Yep.
So they inch their way past
Mhm.
the ghost, leaving Dean to basically be held now by the ghost, like he's got the
Sam.
axe again. I'm sorry, I meant
That's okay.
Sam.
They're interchangeable sometimes. But yes, he's
Sometimes.
being choked again by the axe handle.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Dean is throwing gasoline or lighter fluid or something everywhere in the house.
Yeah.
Comes
Yeah.
into the room that Mordecai is, killing Sam. And the little bug's aerosol fire comes back.
Yes, yes, he's got some sort of aerosol and his lighter and fwing, instant,
Uh-huh.
flamethrower
Yep.
a la Bugs, enough
Yep.
to distract or make the Mordecai disappear.
Yeah, or
Um,
just kind of just like floof out
yep,
for a minute.
floof out so Sam is freed for
Mhm.
the moment. Um, and as they start to run back through the house, Dean still has his lighter and he's like, "All right,
Yep.
plan B."
Yeah.
It's,
There's like
uh,
plan K at this point.
yeah. Yeah. So he has his trusty. I keep calling it a Bic. It's not a Bic lighter because
No,
it's a Zippo.
yes, Zippo.
So my apologies, Zippo. If you would like to sponsor our
Hi.
podcast, I will say Zippo instead of Bic. Yeah. So he throws it into the gasoline or the lighter fluid that he
Mhm.
spread all over the floor. Boom! The house goes up in flames, and Sam's like, "What? This is your plan? Like,
Yeah.
what are you doing?" And he's like, "Well, if this guy can't leave the house and we can't kill him, let's destroy the house so he has
Mhm.
nothing left to haunt."
Yes, and also there's no more house for people to go into.
Right. And he's like, "Okay." And Sam's like, "Well, what if the story changes again,
Mhm.
and he's able to come back in another form?"
Mhm.
And Dean's like, "We'll just have to come back, I
Yeah.
guess."
Yeah.
But did you notice? I thought Sam was kind of wussy in the delivery of these lines. He was kind of like, "Well, what if he comes back?"
Yeah, I was just like, there's nothing wrong with this plan at all. Burning down
Yeah.
the house with the ghost in it. I mean, fire kind of destroys just about everything, you know?
Salt and burn. Yes,
Yes.
exactly. Exactly. That's why because he just seems so like, but what if this? And his voice was
Yeah.
all kind of cracky. I was like, what is that? What wussy? So I wrote down sounding kind of wussy, honestly. That's what I wrote down. But Dean takes the lead, does the right thing. Although Sam does make the point of,
Mhm.
how many things exist only because people believe in them.
Yeah.
And I was like, dun dun
Yeah.
dun.
Yeah, that's like the theme of this that and pranks of this
Yeah.
episode.
Back at the trailer park.
Yes, cut to, and the Ed and Harry have, I don't know, grab some
They've
munchies.
and they've also packed up their entire campsite. Their entire trailer
Yes.
is like packed. Their car is packed. The roof of the car is packed. The
Yeah.
trailer is packed. They've picked up
Uh-huh.
their pink flamingos.
Yeah.
Everything. They're leaving town. And
Yes. Sam and Dean are also there. They
yeah.
have come to, I don't know, say goodbye or wrap things up. I'm not sure, but they're there, and Ed and Harry are kind of smugly being like, "Oh yeah, we've got a big deal going on in La La Land. You know, we sold the
Yeah,
rights
we
to
got a call from
Mordecai."
a Hollywood producer.
Mm-hmm. And Sam and Dean are like, "Good for you."
What's they're describing all the things they're getting, like movie rights, TV
Mm-hmm.
rights, RP rights.
RPG, which is role playing game. So they get in their little
um
car, which I'm surprised that little car can haul that big trailer.
yeah,
Um,
especially given that it was a gremlin.
yeah.
So not only a little car, but one of the worst little cars ever made.
And then as they
But
drive away, Sam confesses that he was the one who called Ed as a Hollywood producer.
yeah. Yeah.
And Dean confesses that he left a dead fish in the backseat of their car.
See, now that reminded me, my dad. Now, I don't know if the story is my dad telling me this happened to him or telling me that he did this or if it was just something that was done at the time.
Mm-hmm.
That newlyweds, you know how they do the driving away with the tin cans and
Uh-huh.
everyone's like, bye.
Yeah.
The prank was to put like what's a really smelly cheese?
I
like
don't
a
know.
Roquefort or something, some really
Rockford
just
is really, really stinky.
to put it on the manifold of the car so that as they drove off and the engine got hotter and hotter, the the cheese would melt and the smell of the cheese would come into the car. And so these newlyweds would be like, "Is that you? Is that my new bride? Is that my new husband who stinks like that?" So I don't know if
Oh
that was done to
no.
my dad, if my dad did that, or if that
Uh-huh.
was like pranks that
Like,
was done.
yeah, yeah. Oh
But
my
that
God,
fish
that's
in the back
funny.
seat, I was like,
Ooh,
"Oh my gosh, cheese on the
yeah,
manifold."
right. So they laugh, and
They call
then
it truce.
they call truce on each other for at least the next 100 miles.
Which is not a long time. So,
And then they drive
uh,
away. And a cute little thing that, again, Netflix viewers won't see is the song that when he turns on the radio, it's a Blue Oyster Cult song. It's I'm burning, I'm burning, I'm burning for
burning for
you.
you. Yep, that would have made the episode better.
Yep.
So I forgot to mention that
Yeah.
because there was just so many Ghostbuster references
Yeah.
in this episode, that I actually did go through my DVD collection to look for the Ghostbusters
Uh-huh.
to bring up so that we could watch it.
Oh my God.
So I couldn't find it though, but I'll look again.
Oh.
I'll look
Oh
again. But
no.
I was like, I'm gonna force her, and maybe
Oh my
Jake can
gosh.
come over
Yeah.
and we can all watch Ghostbusters. But I wanted to mention that on the podcast
Oh
that I will
yay.
make you watch Ghostbusters, Sammy Salloway. So Sammy, I found in my researching podcasts and stuff, I've been following a lot of other podcasters just to kind of get a feel for like what we're supposed to be as
Sure.
as podcasters. I found a lot of how not tos
Right.
along the way, but I've also found some really good how tos.
Mhm.
And there's this one podcast called Man Chatter, and
Love
like
that name.
MAN space chatter, yeah,
Yeah.
Man Chatter. And it's just these two guys, Ben and John, who talk on random topics. And it's not specifically, I would say, for men. It's
Mhm.
two men
Chatting.
chatting.
Mhm.
Um, but they're not just bullshitting. They have their topics for the day and they talk about them and they do a really good job. It's insightful. Some of it's funny. Some of it's painful to listen to because it's uncomfortable topics.
Mhm.
Some of it's racism. Racism in Disney, and
Mhm.
I mean, they go to great lengths to do a good podcast. And one of those things is that John's internet is out at the house, so he rents a hotel room
Oh
so
my
that he can use their
gosh.
internet. I mean, they're dedicated to it, and they do a good job on the podcast. But the other reason I like them is they reached out to us
Mhm.
saying that they liked our podcast. And so to hear someone who is already established and doing a good job on their podcast, for them to reach out to us and give us like not only supportive words to say that, hey, we're doing a good job and keep it up,
Mhm.
but they gave us a shout out on one of their podcasts.
I know that was so nice. Thank you
Yeah.
guys.
Yes, yes. If you want to hear the shout out, it's on
Mhm.
the Shmoney Explained
Yes.
episode. So I just wanted to say thank you. Thank you to the Man Chatter
Yeah, thanks,
podcast.
man chatters. Everyone go check them out, subscribe, and rate them after you subscribe and rate us.
Yes, the one caveat is
Yes.
you have to
Mm-hmm.
hit us first.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to this week's episode. Please follow us, like us, subscribe to us, rate us, all the shameless begging that we must do at the end.
Beg, 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 beg.
Yes. So on Facebook and on Instagram, we are at Salt and Burn This Pod. On Twitter, we are at Salt and Burn This. You can find us on pretty much anywhere you can find podcasts. That's Apple, that's Spotify, that's Podcast Addict, that's Amazon, the ones that you pay for. I think we're on Stitcher. So yeah, we're available everywhere. So subscribe to us and rate us. We would really, really appreciate it. It would help us grow, and that's kind of what we're now aiming to do, since we're 17 episodes in. So I think we've proved we can take this to the long haul.
Yes.
So thank you again. Make sure to join us next week for Something Wicked This Way Comes. That's like That's a mouthful after all
It
of
is.
these, like Hell House, Shadow, Bugs, Hookman.
Very Shakespearean of them.
Yes, yes. So we will see you next week. Bye.
Bye.